It's March 20th, 2026 in Topeka, Kansas. A morning that should have been defined by the routine rhythm of a city payday. A municipal employee stands at a grocery store checkout with a week's worth of supplies, waiting for the conveyor belt to finish its work. They swipe their card through the reader, but instead of the familiar chime of a successful transaction, the terminal flashes a blunt message: declined. They try again, thinking perhaps the magnetic strip is worn, but the result is the same. The plastic card is suddenly, inexplicably, useless. It's Friday morning, the day when the invisible machinery of the city's payroll is supposed to have replenished their livelihood. They pull out their phone and refresh their mobile banking app, waiting for the interface to update and show the expected deposit. It doesn't update, and the number remains unchanged as they tap the screen again, staring at a transaction history that stopped 2 weeks ago. By 9 a.m., this exact same scene is playing out at gas station pumps, coffee shops, and quiet ATM vestibules across the city of Topeka. Police officers, trash collectors, and office clerks are all gathered around their smartphones, staring at the same devastating number: $0.00. Checking accounts are empty becomes the phrase of the hour, whispered in hallways and shouted over the phone to confuse spouses. The rumors start almost immediately, spreading through text threads and break rooms like a digital wildfire across the municipal workforce. Some suggest a Russian ransomware attack has crippled the city's servers, while others fear a total regional bank failure or a secret citywide bankruptcy. But inside the fluorescent-lit cubicles of the city finance department, the reality behind the disappearing wages is far more mundane and far more chilling. The money is there. Millions of dollars are sitting securely in a verified municipal account, ready to be distributed to the thousands who earned it. The software is functional, the servers in the basement are humming with energy, and the digital ledgers are perfectly balanced and ready for processing. But a routine internal deadline on Thursday, March 19th, came and went without a final, human authorization being recorded in the system. One digital signature was never captured by the software, and one internal command was never toggled to release the capital to the banks. In the official press release that followed, the catastrophe is described with sterile, administrative distance as a simple approval error. It was a single, unclicked button in a centralized financial system that effectively halted the livelihoods of an entire capital city's workforce. This is the story of how one administrative oversight paralyzed a government and the families who keep its essential services running. It is a look at the terrifying fragility of the modern social contract, where the basic stability of a home depends on a single digital interaction. And it is an investigation into what happens when the invisible "OK" button that fuels every kitchen table in the city is simply never clicked. To understand how a capital city loses its ability to pay its workers, you have to look closely at the Topeka Finance Department. Every 2 weeks, this small office oversees the movement of millions of taxpayer dollars from government vaults into private checking accounts. It is a complex machinery of digital infrastructure and server racks designed to operate in total silence, unnoticed by the public it serves. The promise of modern municipal finance is simple and absolute: seamless, invisible automation that requires no thought from the recipient. The city utilizes a centralized payment approval system to handle the massive logistical burden of direct deposits for thousands of diverse staff members. Police, firefighters, sanitation workers, and administrative clerks all rely on a rigid, uncompromising payroll processing calendar that dictates their lives. There are standard operating procedure manuals that fill binders in these offices, dictating every specific movement of the city's money. Inside these fluorescent-lit cubicles, digital ledger screens show pending status icons that represent the food and rent of an entire population. The movement of funds through internal authorization tiers is usually a routine exercise, a series of digital handshakes that happen without friction. It is a public utility system, no different from the city's water pipes, its electrical grids, or the pavement on the streets outside. But the seamless nature of this digital process is often just a high-tech mask for a series of very fragile, very human interactions. The system doesn't just run itself on a timer. It requires a specific, manual sequence of digital signatures to release the capital into the banking stream. On the afternoon of March 19th, the internal deadline for the upcoming payroll cycle was approaching, just as it had hundreds of times before. The money was available in the municipal accounts, the payroll records were balanced, and on paper, the city was prepared to fulfill its obligation. But the machinery of the social contract is only as strong as the human hand that reaches out to turn the final. The deadline is set for 4 p.m. on Thursday, March 19th. The final moment the banks will accept an ACH transfer for Friday morning delivery. In the city of Topeka's finance department, the payroll records for the upcoming cycle are finalized and double-checked for any discrepancies. Everything is in its proper place for the bi-weekly disbursement to over 2,000 employees who are finishing their shifts across the city. The money is verified and ready in the municipal accounts, waiting for the software to bridge the gap between the government and the private banks. The software requires one final internal authorization, a last digital handshake to confirm that the funds are cleared to leave the city's control. On the administrative dashboard, a long list of approved tasks sits alongside a single, small, pending notification that requires a click. It is a routine toggle, a small but essential requirement buried in the pages of the standard operating procedure manual for the finance staff. But as the afternoon wears on, the office remains quiet, and the clock on the wall ticks past the bank's hard processing cutoff time. The internal deadline passes without incident, and the window for the massive ACH transfer quietly closes as the servers wait for an instruction. The system doesn't trigger a siren, it doesn't send a high-priority alarm to the mayor's office, and it doesn't flash red in the server room. Instead, the status icon on the monitor simply remains on pending, a yellow dot in a sea of green that signifies a complete system stall. The payment approval system halts entirely, waiting for a command that was never sent, a digital ghost in a multi-million-dollar machine. It is the birth of an approval error, a mundane administrative lapse that leaves millions of dollars frozen in place while the city sleeps. The machinery of the city government is fully functional, the ledgers are perfectly balanced, and the power to the building is still on. But the technical oversight in the finance department has already broken the chain of custody for the wages of thousands of people. By the time the sun rises on Friday morning, the consequences of that missing digital signature have already reached the local banks. The automated promise of a seamless payday is replaced by a void in the ledgers, a missing line item where a life-sustaining deposit should be. A multi-million-dollar infrastructure is effectively paralyzed by a single unclicked button in a quiet, fluorescent-lit cubicle in the heart of the city. By 8:30 a.m. on Friday, the newsroom at KSNT 27 begins receiving a surge of frantic reports from concerned citizens and government workers. The reports aren't coming from just one neighborhood or one disgruntled office. They are pouring in from every single city department. The mood in municipal break rooms across Topeka shifts instantly from the routine of a Friday morning to a quiet, focused sense of panic. Checking accounts are empty becomes the headline of the day as workers realize they cannot pay for their morning commute or their lunch. Employees are no longer looking at their daily tasks. They are staring at their phone screens, watching as their automatic bill payments begin to fail. They are forced to calculate the immediate, cascading cost of a delayed payment in a world where many live from one check to the next. Imminent rent deadlines, mortgage payments, and the threat of bank overdraft fees become the primary concern of the city's first responders. At 10 a.m., the finance department finally identifies the specific approval error in the internal system that caused the massive disruption. But identifying the failure doesn't mean the money instantly reappears in the empty accounts of the workers waiting at the ATMs. The payment approval system isn't designed for a quick reversal. It is a heavy, bureaucratic machine that moves with deliberate, slow precision. By 2 p.m., the city is forced to release an official statement to the impacted residents and the thousands of staff members who are without funds. "We are working to resolve this as quickly as possible," the statement reads, offering little comfort to those facing late fees and penalties. Behind the scenes, the high-speed promise of seamless automation has been completely abandoned in a desperate attempt to fix the mistake. The finance department is now coordinating a grueling, manual process of reinitiating bank transfers that were supposed to be automatic. They are on the phone with dozens of local banking institutions, speaking to managers one by one to explain the administrative failure. The sophisticated digital infrastructure is replaced by frantic, handwritten logs and a mountain of manual data entry to bypass the stalled system. City officials are forced to draft formal letters for employees to give to their landlords and creditors, explaining why the money is missing. It is a formal, embarrassing apology for a technical oversight in the finance department that has compromised the trust of the workforce. The logistical cost of these manual emergency payment corrections begins to mount as the city struggles to outrun the weekend bank closures. It's no longer about a simple digital signature. It's a race against the clock to ensure that families can buy groceries before the stores close. The public utility system of municipal finance has suffered a total loss of pressure, and the recovery is slow, manual, and painful. The funds only begin to move again on Saturday, March 21st, nearly 36 hours after they were expected to arrive in the workers' accounts. But for hundreds of Topeka families, the service disruptions have already hit their kitchen tables and their credit scores in a lasting way. A capital city is left to manage the fallout of a system that works perfectly until it doesn't, and a workforce is left feeling profoundly vulnerable. The funds finally start to clear in the individual accounts on Saturday afternoon, long after the grocery stores have seen the declined messages. For many, the pending icons on their mobile banking apps finally turn green, but the residue of the approval error remains in the ledgers. There are bank overdraft fees to dispute, late rent penalties to negotiate, and the invisible service disruptions of 1,000 private lives. The finance department issues a boilerplate apology for the technical oversight, promising that it will never be allowed to happen again. They promise a full inquiry into the public utility system of their own internal payroll to find out where the human chain of command failed. In South Dakota, IT officials once blamed a 2-day system outage on mislabeled wires in a server rack deep inside a government building. In Topeka, there isn't even a physical cord to point to or a broken piece of hardware that can be held up as evidence of the failure. It is just a digital ghost in the machinery of municipal finance. A missing instruction in a world that assumes instructions are always sent. By Monday morning, the fluorescent-lit cubicles of the city finance department are quiet again, the crisis having passed into administrative memory. The manual emergency payment corrections are complete, and the phone calls to the local bank managers have finally ceased. A single empty office chair sits in front of a glowing computer monitor, the screensaver masking the power of the interface beneath it. A blinking cursor waits on a login screen, silent and indifferent to the chaos it caused just 48 hours prior. The OK button is there, visible, silent, and entirely ordinary, sitting in the middle of a dashboard that controls the lives of thousands, waiting to be forgotten again in exactly 14 days, when the next deadline begins to tick toward the 4 p.m. cutoff.